Hello and welcome. I'm the Badger Reborn, and today I'm going to talk about 7 forgotten heroes from the Wheel of Time. These are characters who I feel don't receive enough attention in the general fan community, or didn't receive enough recognition in the books for their actions, or both. There are also characters that I could see being underappreciated or even potentially cut from the TV show in some cases. I'll go through 7 of these characters, though there are plenty more that I could have chosen. These aren't in any particular order, though the last one is my favorite non-main character in the entire series. This video will, of course, contain spoilers for the entire series, so if you haven't finished the series, definitely finish that up, and then you can get back to this video. Or I guess if you don't care about learning the end point of a lot of great characters, then you can keep watching. It's up to you. But I promise you that my explanations of why they're forgotten heroes are not as good as Robert Jordan's writing, unfortunately. Let me know in the comments who you think are the most forgotten heroes in the Wheel of Time, and what you think about my choices. There's a very good chance that I've forgotten some of the forgotten heroes. I'd love to know what you guys think. So let's jump right into it, though, with number 1, Dobraine Taborwin. Dobraine, a High Lord in Cairhien, is fairly inconspicuous among the Cairhienin at first, but he immediately proves his importance and loyalty when he approaches Perrin in the Sun Palace and tells him that he suspects a plot to put Olivia in power. This is clearly extremely difficult for Dobraine to do since, as a Cairhienin, he's entrenched in Deus Daemar, and having such an open conversation is killing him. However, he's loyal to his vow to Rand, which alone makes him almost completely unique among nobles in the series. Dobraine then calls his armsmen and assists in rescuing Rand from Elida's Aes Sedai group, further proving his loyalty. Despite being an extremely high-ranking Cairhienin, Dobraine never tries to backstab Rand and gain power for himself. He never even complains when Rand elevates Berelain above him in Cairhien, and when Rand, rather rudely in my opinion, tells him that he won't be the king in Cairhien, a position Dobraine completely deserves. At least I think so. Some nobles follow Rand fairly faithfully to gain personal power, but all evidence suggests that Dobraine simply believes it's the right thing to do and even believes in Rand. Throughout the story, Dobraine has many very important roles, and many of which are off-screen. In addition to what I've mentioned, he also rescues Lady Caroline and High Lord Darlin, who Rand eventually installs as the king in Tyr. He also helps Rhuarc secure Bandar Eben, and he also takes care of the city as best he can while Rand is at his lowest point, despite having no personal connection to the city. Rand even trusts Dobraine enough to give him a seal of the Dark One's prison to protect. And then, what is Dobraine's reward for all of this? He nearly gets murdered, and then he's forgotten by Brandon Sanderson. I don't blame Brandon. Well, maybe a little. But Dobraine was a great character who deserved a happy ending or maybe a shockingly sad death. But I think he's absolutely the definition of a forgotten hero in the Wheel of Time. That brings us to number 2, Berelain Sir Paindrag Peyron. Berelain has a similar story to Dobraine in some ways, though he never tries to sleep with Rand. Throughout the story, Berelain is loyal to her oaths to Rand, and sticks with him or with Perrin. However, unlike Dobraine, this is a little more personal, but not for personal power or glory, merely for the unselfish reason of trying to ensure that her nation of Mayene does not get crushed. 2 things I really enjoy about Berelain, no, not those 2, are her courage and conviction. Berelain is presented as a loose woman with no brains in her head at first. The Two Rivers trio and Elaine don't respect her at all. However, they've badly missed the mark on their judgment of Berelain. I would contend that there's no ruler more dedicated to her people than Berelain in the entire story. Though we barely see Berelain in Mayene, we know that she works tirelessly to ensure Mayene's survival, both before the story and during it. When she tries to sleep with Rand in the Stone of Tyr, it's for the sole purpose of forging an alliance with the Dragon Reborn that will ensure Mayene's protection. Rand accidentally scares her, but she gathers herself and changes tact, impressing Rand with bravery in the moment. Only Rand fighting mirror copies of himself nearly to death eventually scares Berelain away from him. However, she doesn't leave. She just changes her target to Perrin, while also resolving to serve Rand. Rand moves Berelain to Cairhien because he needs a ruler he can trust, which is a huge credit to Berelain. Like Dobraine, Berelain does a lot of ruling off-screen and is both effective and fair. The thing I like best about Berelain's story is how she wins the support of Rhuarc and the Wise Ones among the Aiel. Rhuarc initially views her as a child, and the Wise Ones have no time for her. However, over the course of the story, we see that perception change, much to the dismay of Egwene, who can't see past her own prejudices in the way that the Wise Ones can. The Wise Ones can recognize that Berelain cares about her people, and, like them, she'll do whatever is required to protect them. In my opinion, that resonates deeply with the Aiel, as does her loyalty to Rand, and her tireless efforts working in Cairhien, and her bravery. She then travels with Perrin, and while her antics trying to come between Perrin and Fael are not great, not her best moments, she's also the reason that Perrin doesn't completely collapse and literally die, and she helps keep his forces together. Berelain does have a satisfying conclusion, in my opinion, as she meets and falls for Galad, her equal or slightly better even in physical attractiveness. I like this pair mostly because I just really like both characters. However, there are a couple that many people are quick to split up in ships or proposed rewrites for the Amazon TV show, which I think is a tragedy. Berelain deserves to end up with someone like Galad, who can help protect Mayene as he reforms the White Cloaks. People don't forget about Berelain, but they do often overlook what a hero she is. But I think she definitely fits the definition of a forgotten hero. Speaking of Galad, by the way, he's an honorable mention because I love that we never ever see him fall from his pedestal of always trying to do what's right. That's quite amazing. But we'll shift gears to number 3, Sorilea of the Cairhien Aiel. I'll spend a little bit less time on Cerelia because she shows up less often in the story, but often in more memorable ways. She does less off-screen than other characters, although she's constantly working, of course. Cerelia leads the Aiel Wise Ones by force of will. Despite being the oldest of the entire group, she's surprisingly progressive. She understands the need for the Aiel to make major changes to their way of life and beliefs, which is absolutely critical. She's the Aiel who leads the change in Wise Ones being passive in battle. Without Cerelia, Wise Ones would not have fought against the Shaido Wise Ones and the Aes Sedai at Dumai's Wells, meaning the battle likely would have gone completely differently. Cerelia is one of a very small number of people that Cadsuane respects completely, and knows not to mess with, despite Cerelia being incredibly weak in the One Power. Though to be fair, Cadsuane doesn't care about power strength at all. This respect, though, in itself is a major accomplishment, that Cadsuane feels Cerelia is an equal, and nearly immediately upon meeting her. Cerelia helps Cadsuane understand that Rand needs to stop from completely turning to stone, and makes that discovery, honestly, much earlier than Cadsuane does, and I think much more completely. Some people miss a few interesting details, such as that Cerelia gives Varen a sleeping potion which is lethal in too large a dose. Varen nearly uses this later to poison Cadsuane. I think Cerelia understood that this may be the use that the mixture is put to. Another underrated aspect of Cerelia is her humor. She's one of the most consistently funny characters in the series to me, full of dry wit, usually directed towards Rand. Her interactions trying to get Egwene to marry an Aiel man are also funny. Cerelia lives through the story, which I actually think is not the best ending for her. Dying in the last battle would give the Aiel a new leader afterwards, allowing them to symbolically start fresh after their largest battle. Regardless, you couldn't ask for a better leader than Cerelia, who is both effective and amazingly wise. Her role for both the Aiel and Rand make her a clear hero who doesn't get a lot of attention. So, number 4, Dyelin Tarvin. Like Cerelia, Dyelin's role is fairly obvious usually. She assists Elaine in gaining the Lion Throne, never displaying anything but loyalty despite having chances to easily take the throne herself. Without Dyelin, not only would Elaine have been unable to secure the throne, I don't think she would have even gotten close. Again, like Cerelia, Dyelin is quite funny when she interacts with Brigida and Avienda. She often gets a joke in at Brigida's expense, which not many characters are able to do. I think Dyelin deserves more fame due to her almost unbelievably helpful role for Elaine. I personally think that Dyelin even deserved the Lion Throne herself, and would not be unhappy to see her gain it in the TV show. In the books, obviously, she doesn't want it, which is totally fine. She clearly cares for Andor and is reluctant to take the throne, which is a great trope for an eventual ruler, sometimes at least. It's actually a little frustrating to me at times in the story how ridiculously loyal Dyelin is, but she's a really clear hero. However, she's often forgotten because, to be frank, the Elaine Andor parts are a part that a lot of people would like to forget, or just often do forget from the story. Let's move on, though, to number 5, which is Olivia. Olivia's story begins with being collared as a Damani by the Seanchan at age 13. One extremely remarkable and often overlooked aspect of Olivia is her age. Cerelia, the oldest known Aiel, is over 200. Olivia is over 400. Over 400! She's literally spent over 400 years as a Damani. She's actually 414 years old. In spite of this incredible time, she's never been broken by the collar. That in itself is amazing, since we see other women, including grown Aes Sedai, broken within weeks of being collared. Once freed from the collar, Olivia claims she wants to kill Suldam, which is completely a different attitude than almost any other Free Damani shows. However, she's fearful when hearing Shanshan accents, displaying some understandable and serious PTSD-like signs. Despite this, Olivia is a valuable weapon for Rand and his entourage. At Shadar Logoth, while Rand is cleansing the One Power, Olivia fights Lanfear and drives her away, getting badly injured herself in the fight. Olivia doesn't have a very prominent role in the story, but she helps fight both Lanfear and Graendal, which is a significant accomplishment for a non-main character. Her ability to break away from Shanshan control, fight through her PTSD, and her critical assistance to the light make Olivia an underrated hero. Now we're at number 6, Herid Fel. Herid Fel is a scholar at Rand's Academy in Cairhien. His main job in the series is to research questions that Rand has on a variety of topics. Despite Rand's trust issues, he shares a lot of his biggest challenges with Fel, who spends months trying to find answers for Rand in one of the world's largest libraries, using a combination of research and philosophy. I'm really excited to get to my number 7, so I'm just going to say that Fel was rewarded by being ripped limb from limb by the Golem, or by Min, and is forgotten except by Min, who really appreciates him and thinks about him often. She even follows in his footsteps as a scholar, a path that I think will continue for her after the series. Readers rarely think about Fel, despite his contributions to both the cleansing of Saidin, the breaking of the seals, and the inspiration for Min to discover the truth about Kalimdor. These were 3 absolutely critical components of the story, and Herid Fel had a big hand in all of them. Now, we're finally on our last one. Let me tell you how excited I am to introduce number 7, Sulin of the Goshen. Sulin starts out being introduced as the Aiel who's chosen as roof mistress of the maidens in Rodion, the house that essentially adopts Rand. Their relationship takes off from there, becoming one of the most touching and comedic relationships in the Wheel of Time. All of the maidens have a unique relationship with Rand, to put it mildly. Sulin is much older than Rand, one of the oldest maidens we see actually, yet she views Rand as a brother that needs to be cared for, even doing things like bringing him food, along with larger roles. When Rand starts to disrespect the maidens, keeping them away from battle in a misguided attempt to be chivalrous, Sulin is the one who approaches Rand and explains how he's dishonoring the maidens to the point where they will have to give up the spear if he does it again. This is a powerful scene, even though the message doesn't truly sink in for Rand. Sulin is also extremely accomplished in battle. In the fighting around Cairhien against the Shido, she receives a serious cut to the head, yet continues to fight. When Rand goes out alone and nearly dies, Sulin is the one who finds him and brings him to Moraine for healing. Sulin has a fight with another maiden, Nandera, over who's going to lead the maidens rescuing Rand. Sulin wins the fight, knocking Nandera out, though this doesn't mean what we expect. Even with this fighting prowess, though, the best part of Sulin is easily the interactions between her and Rand. Before I get into that, let me take a brief sidebar to say that, as I made this list, I realized that almost every character interacts primarily with Rand. As I thought about it, I think there are a few different reasons for that. First, Rand is the most main character and has more page time than anyone else. Second, Rand is one of my 2 favorite characters. Matt's the other. But Matt's sections are all about Matt. Rand's sections have so many characters who shift into the story with important roles and then leave the story. Compare this to someone like Matt or Egwene, who also has tons of screen time, but they're with the same smaller group of characters more often. Lastly, I think Rand is just the most fascinating foil for secondary characters, as a result of him being the most complex character. So, back to Sulin. Rand is constantly irritating Sulin when she's the leader of the maidens and his bodyguard, escaping from her watch and often requiring her to quickly get limited numbers of maidens. The real humor comes in, though, when Sulin becomes a maid in Andor as a way to meet Toh. She is unsurprisingly terrible at being a maid, which is hilarious to watch, as she angrily bumbles her way through, trying to curtsy and trying to act meek. She even wears a dress, which is shocking to anyone who knows her. Sulin, as I mentioned earlier, is one of my favorite characters from the entire series, providing both humor and heart. Unfortunately, Sulin then travels with Perrin when he leaves Cairhien, which essentially causes her to be forgotten in the story. I really wish Robert Jordan hadn't done this because she has nothing to do in this storyline and no chemistry with Perrin. She's pretty much present for most of Perrin's storyline from that point on, but totally forgettable. Even worse, Brandon Sanderson didn't even include her in his books, which breaks my heart. Again, I don't blame Brandon, maybe a little, but I know he had a gigantic task and did most of it really very well. However, my heart does break for the way Sulin is totally forgotten after she does so much throughout the entire story to protect Rand, lead the maidens, and provide a constant, humorous presence to balance her emotional bond with Rand. Sulin is the ultimate definition of a forgotten hero. Rafe, if you're watching, I doubt you are, but you never know, please give Sulin the hero's ending that she deserves. Something perhaps that involves Zin Rand recognizing the emotional labor that Sulin put into caring for him for so long, and how much she cares about him as the only son of a maiden to come back, and finding Sulin to tell her how much it means to him that she cares for him, even when he constantly dishonored her. Well, that's been my top 7 forgotten heroes from the Wheel of Time. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What did you think about these heroes when you were reading, and who would you add to the list? I've also got to thank my supporters on Patreon for their support, even while I haven't been making any videos. I've been working about 60 hours a week for the last several months, so I haven't had the time or honestly energy to make videos. However, I was really excited about this one, and hopefully we'll be making more soon. As the show approaches, and we got that Season 2 confirmation the day I'm recording this, we start to see more really intriguing things as well. Hopefully like a trailer, fingers crossed. There's going to be a lot more that I will get excited about, of course, for the show. The same with all of you, I'm sure. As that continues to happen, I'll definitely be making more videos, or at least I'll be doing my best. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great week. If you'd like to hear a funny story, I was making a frozen pizza, and it's a really good looking frozen pizza too. Kind of the more high-end variety. So we're looking forward to it. And as I got it out of the oven, or as I was going to get it out of the oven, I accidentally dropped it cheese side down onto the bottom of the oven. And so was, of course, unable to retrieve it and unable to eat it. It was tragic.